Hey guys, welcome to Talking Roll Express episode 9 in your house No Way Out of Texas. I'm Lewis, I'm joined by Thomas, Oliver and Cammy. A few facts about No Way Out of Texas before we begin. It was the 20th edition of the In Your House pay-per-view produced by World Wrestling Federation. At the time, it was preceded by In Your House D-Generation X and would be followed by In Your House Unforgiven. It occurred on February 15th, 1998 at the Compaq Center in, you guessed it, Houston, Texas. It drew an audience of 16,110 people. It was made up of 7 matches, giving it a runtime of 2 hours and 36 minutes. On commentary, you have good old JR and the King. Match-wise, you have the Headbangers versus Taka Goldust and Mark Merrow, Taka Michinoku versus Pantera, the Godwins versus the Quebecers, JBL versus Jeff Jarrett, Ahmed Johnson, Disciples of Apocalypse and Ken Shamrock versus Nation of Domination, Kane versus Vader, and in the main event, Cactus Jack, Terry Funk, Owen Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin versus New Age Outlaws, a mystery opponent, and Triple H. Right guys, initial impressions of this pay-per-view.
I completely agree with you when it was a pay-per-view made up of 7 matches and it was 2 hours and 36 minutes.
Yeah, this was definitely in Texas.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And there was no way out of this.
Yeah, there was definitely no way out. Yeah, I mean, we were speaking before the intro as to how the Attitude Era is falsely romanticised. I think this was a real sticking point for it as well, because this is one, even looking at the makeup of the main event as well, it's one of those, it felt like it should have been good, but it just really didn't register for me. It just really, at no part did it land for me, because usually with some of these as well, I've got my personal highlights, but with this, yeah, it was 7 matches, 2 hours and 36 minutes. That's all I'm saying.
I have nothing to add to any of that, to be perfectly honest with you. There was certain moments of glimmering hope, I think. There was a lot of good ideas that felt very McMahon around this time, which I'm going to bring up later. I've made a couple of notes to support the theory. It feels almost like there's a little bit of a parallel between what's going on with the product at this point and like right now, present day, and what's happening in this pay-per-view. And I can't help but feel that it's going to get to the point where 10 years on from now, we're going to romanticize about the 2020 era, whatever in God's name we're in now, kind of thing. Sounds daft, but I'll get to it.
The COVID era.
The oh, sorry.
Yeah, this is obviously the first In Your House with the scratchy logo, and I was going to say, like, this is only really a month and a half, 2 months from the In Your House DX pay-per-view, and it feels like an entirely different product. I got that within, even though you've got the Mania 13 kind of intro music in the package and that, within the first 20 seconds, you get the shot of the audience and the fireworks and that, and it feels like an entirely different product, for better or worse, than it did in 1997. I did like the opening package for what it was worth. It did exactly what it was there to do. I think it's quite funny that this is often remembered in between, Survivor Series 97 and Mania 14. It's almost kind of remembered as a no man's land period, because you've got Austin, who isn't quite established yet, but obviously this is just a couple of weeks after Shawn's back injury, so your world champion is effectively MIA during this time, and it's kind of, there's a real struggle for power. Just something I picked up on.
Yeah. A vacuum almost. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think history is written by the winners in this case as far as the Attitude Era goes. If you look at parallel, I think I was just sort of Googling there, and WCW's Nitro show was in the Alamo Dome in the same month. And if you compare the pay-per-views to a Monday Night Nitro to this card alone, you can kind of see, just the Fed sort of bleeding a little bit, especially with just being removed from the Michaels injury kind of thing. Does anyone have any notes on whether or not I was reading that JR cut a promo to mention the fact that Michaels wasn't going to be in the main event? Was that in the network version for anybody? I can't remember.
That was. Yeah,
I think I picked up on that as well.
Because, I don't ask me what it was word for word, but I like something like, Shawn Michaels won't be able to compete tonight because he's injured.
I liked apparently I've written this from memory, and it's a good thing I took notes because some of this pay-per-view felt like this. But the one interesting point apparently is that the match was so violent that the casket match, now he wanted to note that it was an unsanctioned match. Sort of thing. I quite like putting it over like that. Let's just exploit this injury just a little bit, make it feel a bit more hard gristled. I don't know.
I suppose it looks less like like the Fed fucked up as well. So it despite the fact it was on our pay-per-view with two wrestlers in our company, and we let it go ahead. It was completely unsanctioned. Shawn Michaels broke his back, and it's got nothing to do with us, really.
Yeah, and they seem more concerned with the fact that Shawn Michaels has suffered a back injury than Undertaker being murdered by his own brother. Who, it's like, what are we going to do next? But we'll just let Kane fight Vader rather than take criminal charges. Let's just hype up Shawn's back injury.
Yeah, you're not going to get much luck with handcuffs on a man who shoots electricity out of his fingers, though, are you?
I was about to say, as we will see later on in the WWE timeline, it is much easier to come back from being murdered by your own brother than it is breaking your back.
How do we feel about the PlayStation blimp? It might be the most jarring piece of equipment I've ever seen in an Attitude Era pay-per-view. It just does not fit the whole scratchy logo, new age aesthetic whatsoever.
I personally think when I slag the modern product off, and after seeing my arse with NXT last week, I don't dislike the modern product. I just miss the blimp.
The blimp is excellent. I want to see the blimp return with new sponsors, like Just Eat or something.
I reckon it all go tits up, and we'll end up seeing like a Make America Great Again blimp.
Oh.
And then in 10 years, we'll be talking about fucking December to Dismember with the Make America Great blimp.
The Blue Chew blimp.
Be the darkest timeline.
And then we'll be like, damn, we really missed that.
Blue Chew, MeUndies,
It's going to be like
presents Hell in a Cell.
What was that? What was that last week? The Good Time ice cream sandwiches or something.
Oh yeah.
You put that on a blimp, man. You're making bank.
It'll be like all those YouTube video plugs. It'll be like Loot Crate and Dollar Shave Club that they'll have on the blimps going forward now.
Oh yeah, they will.
Dollar Shave Club presents Great Balls of Fire.
Oh. When do product promos fully come into WWE as well? So like they have a bounty insert, and it's like a last man standing match. The ring's covered in blood, and then just like the referee comes out with some bounty to mop it up. When is that point? When does the Fed run out of money to that point?
I mean, it's getting carried on, these deals now. Like we went over this with our pay-per-view last week, wherein the profits at an all-time high and viewership's at an all-time low, and it's off the back of questionable sponsorship deals and also deals with Saudi Arabians and so on, kind of thing. I don't think we're that far off of it by the sound of things.
When are we going to start getting sponsors and companies like sponsoring finishing moves?
I've just noticed.
Jesus.
I've just noticed that this intro to the pay-per-view is going to ensure that we are ourselves never sponsored ever at this point.
Right, getting into our first match, Mark Merrow and Goldust versus the Headbangers. Oh dear, Goldust's outfit. I see they were going for the Larry Lucas of Marilyn Manson WWF Venn diagram, little inner circle there. I can't imagine they could have mined that for all it was worth.
It's like he's just lost on the way to a Kiss concert, man. I'm not seeing the Marilyn Manson thing. They can try and force the Marilyn Manson thing down my throat all they like.
I wasn't too sure if it was on his way to a Kiss concert supposed for Marilyn Manson, or he was just in a stag do and happened to be totally wrestled that night as part of it.
Every time Goldust shows up on this sort of timeline that we're following, I just get sad because we're not far removed from him being quite old. I understand that you need to change a character to prevent him from being stale, but God, this is such a miss. That it's not even a miss. It's like you can just so plainly tell they have not a clue what to do with him.
And the thing is, I mean, Goldust was still playing Goldust over 20 years after he first debuted. And although it was still, like, it wasn't exactly necessarily main event in that, fans were still into it. Fans were still cool with it because the character was so interesting, and he managed to adapt it so slightly to kind of move with the times. This, the artist formerly known as Goldust, is worse than that WCW character he had, Seven.
Was that character not supposed to be a nonce? Or something like that. Like,
I rest my
they gave
case.
him a paedophile gimmick in WCW.
I am not going to go back on what I just said. That was still a better gimmick than this, because at least you knew it was nonsense in that. This one, I'll try to hide it.
I don't want to go back and find out. Something you're just better off not knowing. It's one of those. Looking at this, I don't know if this is, as you said, them trying to adapt the character and missing, or they were just punishing him for something, because this is what it feels like.
Well, it feels like they've got so much. Both the managers, the Valley's managers, they're over as hell, and it's almost obviously by accident by how much they're phoning in Goldust and Mark Marrow's character, kind of thing. Like, it's, you know, and because we saw shades of this in the last pay-per-view, and it just feels like, how long can we get off with this until, you know, the wheels sort of come off? I'm pretty certain, by the way, that Mark Marrow was in the exact same storyline with DDP and WCW, wherein his Valley was really over, and the only way he could get heat was by start being a dick to the Valley that was over.
Merrill actually does have some pretty impressive heel heat here. Like,
I like him here. I'm saying
it's crowd on his side in a bad way, but in a
Yeah.
good way.
But it's because he's done it before. Like, he's literally been in this situation before. I really like him just in general, kind of thing. I wouldn't, you know, put him on my list of boys that I want to see go over, kind of thing. But I still definitely feel there's a missed opportunity with the fella. He was throwing some really good worked punches, no matter how much the headbangers were no selling them. It was brutal to watch. I've not actually had much exposure to the headbangers, believe it or not, but I could tell that the gimmick in itself was, I mean, it was. I thought to myself, this is actually quite cool. Like, I could tell these guys would have been over, but I just felt that the performers themselves were doing such a bad job at getting over the finish line.
I think the kind of headbangers gimmick and even Goldust, Marlon Manson type Kiss thing here, what he's trying to do, it's already dated. If it is a kind of case of like Vince McMahon trying to cash in the Marlon Manson thing, he's basing it on his Antichrist Superstar era, which is like at least 2 years prior to this pay-per-view. So he's already missed the boat in cashing in on that.
I suppose. Yeah, and I mean, grunge is dead and buried, both figuratively and literally by this point. So, you know, 100% that's dated as well, I guess, now that I think about it.
One of the things that really tickled me, and I made a wee note here, was we were talking about obviously NXT, and we were addressing Karen Cross, who's 6'4", and they're trying to package as a monster heel. Picked up JR's commentary. Goldust is 6'6". Like, he's a legitimate monster.
And he doesn't look at it. Yeah, he doesn't look at it in the context of everything that's going on in the ring in this match either. So when you put it like that,
I think it's because he's not a particularly big guy as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're talking like a Vader level monster, you know the guy's big, but when he doesn't look his height.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Mick Foley as well. He's the same height as me, and I thought he was like 5'8" or something.
The only thing that I kind of, because again my mind did drift off during this match, it actually looked like the PlayStation blimp had collapsed into the crowd, Hindenburg style, and that was the only thing that really made my eyes bulge during this match. Just to
gutted.
Yeah,
I never saw this.
I didn't see the blimp collapse.
Sorry.
So I was going to mention something on height there as well, actually, just for context. Raven is like 6'1".
He looks tiny.
Yeah, and that just shows you how big a lot of these guys were at that time, where the average height was making people at 6 foot look like wee guys. But I suppose you really need to kind of hit the context when you see Goldust in WCW a few years prior to this. He's in a lot better shape, and we see him next to guys that he does look a lot taller. But you're right, he still doesn't have that kind of monster look about him.
Well, for me, in hindsight, the probably nowadays the most time I see Raven is on my weekly rewatch of X7, where he's up against Big Show and Kane, and at which point he looks tiny, like an Oompa Loompa or something. He's just not existent in that match.
Yeah, towards the end of the match, headbanger Thrash literally gets his head banged open. Yeah, again, another thing is the wig on Goldust falls off, and he looks like Cody on HGH. We often forget just how brotherly like Cody and Dustin actually look like at the same. I was scary. Say, oh right, yeah, no, they are definitely siblings.
But it's one of those. I can look at Goldust and I can look at Cody Rhodes, and it's just like, no, you are two completely different people. But I think that's because. Okay, I'm gonna really fucking see me arse here. It's because Goldust looks like Goldust and Cody Rhodes just looks like a bloke. I'm fully aware that Dustin Rhodes is also a bloke, but I don't see him like that.
He's the American bloke.
Yeah. God, that's a gimmick.
Yeah, he's the ordinary guy. He's his dad,
Yeah.
the American dream. Except, in a world where people are an appropriate healthy weight.
He's another.
I'm actually amazed that, because think at the time Goldust went and debuted, that it was that kind of gimmick era where everybody had like, the professions, and Dusty Rhodes being the son of a plumber. I'm amazed that Dustin didn't get saddled with the TJ Hopper gimmick.
Yeah, the Duke the Dumpster Drossy thing, they were going to saddle him with something really, really piss poor.
I heard that.
Joiner.
I heard on the Bruce Pritchard podcast at one point that they were interested in giving him the Sandman gimmick, but not the Sandman gimmick. Where, as in, he would be called the Sandman. So almost like Seven and Goldust combined, he would, he's the Sandman, except he would put people to sleep with submission holds and stuff like that, and cut promos like Jake the Snake, like slow and calculated and stuff. Like I could totally get behind that if Goldust wasn't a money making machine.
As long as it didn't take him like fucking half an hour to get to the ring like the actual Sandman does. Going back to the plumber gimmick, I've just seen Hacksaw Jim Duggan's alive, so he could make it work.
Yeah, he's very active on Instagram.
Is he?
Especially in his senior years, like he's doing all these cameo shout-outs and stuff like that, right? Recorded voice messages. We should get him to do the intro to the podcast, so I don't have to keep doing it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, let's do that.
Do any of us have a favourite cameo video from professional wrestling at all? No?
Well, I've actually, my mate, got a few done for a football podcast we went into, and he's done Jim Duggan, he's done Kurt Angle, but Roddy Piper was the best one, and there's actually a video of Roddy Piper, and he mentions me in it, and it's just Piper. He's no just sitting at his desk, just reading the script like that. He's totally animated. He's talking in the country. If I can find it, I'll send you. It's brilliant.
See, because Piper was always like him. I think there's the Wrestlers vs Zombies movies, and he's the only person that's shown up to actually do a job, kind of thing. I have cursed my eyes by watching that, but hats off to the man. He gave 100% to everything he done. Even is he referred to as the Maniac in Always Sunny?
Yeah,
and stuff?
He was great in Always Sunny
So
as
good
well.
in that.
And They Live, obviously, just one of the best wrestler performances of all time.
I'll actually go ahead and say it's the best. Like the best
Yeah.
wrestler has ever actually done acting. Again, it didn't help that it was being directed by John Carpenter, so he knew it was in safe hands.
It's also an unfortunate sort of like level to try and measure yourself up against as the best wrestler to ever act.
Well, there was the thing that Vince would not be outdone by John Carpenter, so hearing that they were making They Live, he decided he was going to do No Holds Barred.
That's very McMahon to throw a heck of a lot of money and time and power into something so just based around his ego.
But like, can he not just take the L from John Carpenter? Like, he couldn't just, who's John Carpenter? Hey, who's this guy that made Halloween? Piss on him. I know better than the guy who made Escape from New York.
Look, all the characters I've created.
Has anybody actually watched No Holds Barred recently?
No.
I know that.
No, not recently.
I watched it 2 years ago. I went to a comedy night, and it was a good good comedians with bad films, and it was the end of like a running commentary. There was times we didn't have to speak, and people were in fucking tears of laughter. It's an incredibly bad. You've no idea how bad the movie actually is until you watch it as an adult.
You know what's really now fucking up for me, because I've just googled it. I'm looking at the poster. Hulk Hogan is wearing what Jeff Jarrett wears in the mid-90s.
The only thing I know about it was the guy from The Dark Knight, Tony Lister, aka Zeus, the guy on the boat in The Dark Knight that says "Give it to me." That's like the only thing I know about it. I haven't seen the film. I don't want to see the film.
No, please, you must watch it. It's incredible.
I think if the Marine films are any indicator of WWE films production slate, I think I'll just steer very, very clear of it.
It makes the Marine look like Schindler's List.
I thought
don't even know what to think about that.
The first Marine was all right, and See No Evil was all right. But after then, wasn't the fucking Miz in it or something?
Yeah, they're trying to repackage him as like the new Liam Neeson.
Oh,
I
Jesus
think
Christ.
Mr. Kennedy was in it as well. I think he was in the second one. Somebody was in the second one.
Ted DiBiase's son was in one of them. Almost positive of it. But I get the first Marine film worked because it was basically a Commando ripoff.
Oh yeah, it's so cheesy.
It works because it has that 80s throwback style to it, whereas now it's like they try to ape the new action film aesthetic where everyone's done with shaky cam and that, and everyone's got that weird kind of brown yellow filter. So it doesn't work.
And obviously because Vince is doing it, it's a complete car crash.
And it's like the 10th film or something.
Oh my God.
Let's.
Sorry, don't digress too much. So that's been some really good WWE studio films, including Oculus. That was really good.
Mm-hmm.
And not a wrestler in sight.
I was thinking of Oculus there for a second. My mind went to Octia. You know the one that Boon Jong Ho did about like the pig. I was like, why on earth would Vince McMahon produce that?
Why not? It's important to emphasise at this point to the audience listening and watching that the reason as to why we have segued so hard into the left field is because this match has utterly nothing to talk about. So much so that there was a bit of juice in there because they had nothing else to resort to. It's such a shame for people like Mr. Rhodes and Mark Mallow to have to resort to wasting their time like this. I want to put over just for a split second how well Goldust was working in this match, because it's this weird juxtaposition of completely random part of his gimmick. It's not going over, but then he just works so damn clean. Like, he looks like a pile of tatties, but there's no tatties being thrown in sight. It's everything so smooth. And that's the only reason as to why this gets a 2 out of 5 for me, purely because I feel so goddamn bad for that man.
I'd agree with that. Yeah, it's a bad match. It's a bad concept. It's a bad gimmick. But there was good work in there. But yeah, the fact that we've spoke about getting Hacksaw Jim Duggan to open the show, we've been talking about No Holds Barred. I think there's your review right there. Yeah,
Mosh gets the win. 2 stars. Well, I think obviously this is the first No Way Out. And I think there's like either 10 or 11 subsequent No Way Outs. But I think this kind of illustrates a big problem that we have with future No Way Outs, which is that everything's a prequel to Mania. Yeah. Like everything feels like so small scale. Well, but don't worry, we're not ending it now. We'll end it in a month's time, and that's when you'll get your real finish. So it really feels like they're holding water. It's like the middle part of a trilogy, shall we say. It's
a placeholder pay-per-view. It's after the Rumble. It's between Mania. It's just there to fill up time.
Make some money.
Yeah, we cash in.
Mm-hmm. Immediately after this, we get the Owen Hart interview backstage. I was trying to think, this would have been Owen's first run with the Euro title, wouldn't it have been? And if it was, then it's pretty poor compensation for having your brother screwed out of the world title in the company.
I don't think that's how he saw it at the time.
No, I'm sure he didn't, but pretty harsh reality of it is, it's, oh, by the way, sorry, your brother's, we subsequently fucked him out of the belt, Here's a European title.
Yeah,
run.
Well, that's in hindsight. I think maybe at the time he was thinking it was a sign of things to come, possibly, but obviously, unfortunately, we knew how that went, kind of thing, and I'm sure even he came to realise toward the end when he had to revive the Blue Blazer of all things, the way it was going.
And the European title at this stage as well has some decent lineage to it when it first started. In fact, Owen Hart actually wrestled in the final for it. The Bulldog had a cracking match. And obviously Bulldog was the first champion, Shawn Michaels of it. Owen Hart having the European title at the time, although it was still a relatively new bottom of the totem pole title, was quite established in its own way, just based on who had it. It was almost becoming the new IC title in many ways, the workhorse title.
But that's almost interesting to bring up in itself, and it's the first parallel I'd like to bring up with the modern product, wherein there's just too many damn titles in this instance, especially on this pay-per-view. Never mind present day. Present day, they've got a well of talent that needs something to do. Here, it doesn't feel that way at all, kind of thing. You've got like the light heavyweight, the European, and then there's still Intercontinentalists or not at this point, tag teams, It's ridiculous.
Obviously the European title wouldn't even be the last belt that was introduced of that year. Like towards the end of '98, Mankind would get the hardcore title, and then we would have yet another belt. But
then that when I felt like when that got introduced, though, that felt almost. I know it didn't become like it felt very storyline to him, very insular. Like the way it got introduced, it seemed like this is going to be a hot flash in the pan kind of thing. Obviously, that's not what happened. But that's what it felt like at the time.
Mm-hmm. Immediately after that, we get Taka Michinoku versus Pantera. There's an introduction at the start of the match by Sonny. I keep forgetting Sonny was actually in the WWF in 1998, to tell the truth. I don't know. It feels kind of sad to say this, knowing where Sonny is now and where she has been for the last decade. But she sounds.
Where is she now? She's absolutely minted.
Yeah.
She's had a pictures of her tits on line. She's raking it in. I have nothing but respect for her just now.
Estimated that she could make 250k. It was estimated that she made 250k. We don't know that she actually has 250k right now.
If you have an estimation of 250k, you're doing all right.
Yeah.
Even if you fall short of that by a large margin, you're doing okay. For someone who's made a career in wrestling, professional wrestling, and didn't even wrestle to any great degree, she's doing just fine. And let's not forget of all those royalties from Sunny Side Up and the likes. I'm sure that's still popular.
Let's be honest, we're talking about romanticising the Attitude Era. If she is making $250,000 off the same people who romanticise the Attitude Era,
they are literally romanticising the Attitude Era.
They are, but honestly, God bless her and God bless every penny she makes.
Yes,
100%.
Yes. I pray that she doesn't piss that up a wall. I pray that she uses it to reinvent herself. But
feels a little bit Last Chance Saloon, a little bit.
Yeah, she's been burning the candle at both ends for a long, long time now, hasn't she?
I don't think that's fair at the moment.
Me on Twitter.
Yes.
I don't want to know why you're blocked.
I'd like to know why I'm blocked. I have no idea.
Yeah, she sounds high as a kite at the start of this match here, was what I was going to say. Her voice really dodges. Again, getting away from Sonny, getting on to Pantera. What do you make of his Kung Fu Panda outfit?
3 thumbs up.
See when they came out, I was like, I couldn't remember this match. I haven't seen this pay-per-view in years, and I find myself, this isn't going to be any good. This is going to be a very poor man's cruiserweight rip-off type thing. But hey, appearances can be deceiving, because this is probably the match of the night for me, and not against a poor card, but actually a genuinely cracking match. Pantera really did impress me. But you're right, when he came out, it was almost like they had we need a luchador to fight Taka. You, come here, wear this.
Yeah.
Type feel to it.
Apparently he was signed from this year to about 1999-2000, and in that time this was his highest profile match.
Jesus.
Yep, and I mean, he's well over in Mexico from all accounts, kind of thing. It's a bit more Wild West down there in regards to promotions at the time. So like when I'm reading things, it's really difficult to gauge where he is on a national scale. But as a career, it seems to be pretty decorated. My thoughts on the match is, holy hell, it's like I've not actually watched two styles in a while. Like Pantera is such a lucha where it really is a dance. He isn't really selling, but hats off to him. I don't think that's what he's supposed to be doing, sort of thing. Like, at least it's difficult to articulate. He's doing what a lucha does, and Taka is doing what he does. And it was just so interesting. I was so into this.
Yeah,
until Brian
I
Christopher
really enjoyed
showed up.
this. Oh yeah, what the fuck was that, man? Jesus Christ. And then again with Jerry Lawler, it's just too on the nose. It's not funny.
No. Well, the thing is, it's like I've said before in previous pods, the Brian Christopher Jerry Lawler thing I did find quite amusing. There was no need for it here, none whatsoever. They weren't involved in the match. It wasn't Brian Christopher had no reason being there, apart from to get him some kind of like TV time and that. They kept distracting for the fact these guys were having a cracking match.
Yeah,
the movements were pretty fluid.
And I mean, they actually were cutting away, and showing like them talking about something totally irrelevant. It was really frustrating. I can't think of why they would do it. I don't see Lawler being that over with the Office that they're really trying that hard to put his son over as a favour. So the only thing I can think of is they actually look at Brian Christopher and go, this guy's got character. You know what the lightweight division hasn't got? Character. Which is crazy, because I don't want him anywhere near it, personally. I think he really brings the whole thing down in regards to his style and what he's got going on. A quick note, by the way, I think the last time we spoke about this whole situation with Brian Christopher and Taka is we said the 1-2-3 kid would have been good in that position.
Yeah.
I didn't realise at the time X-Pac, i.e. the 1-2-3 kid, was actually the last ever light heavyweight champion the Fed had.
Okay.
So clearly they were missing him as well a little bit. It seems like they were also thinking, God, I wish we were nicer to that kid.
I actually think I can imagine the King having a lot of sway backstage in the office and stuff like that. I'm sure I read something a while ago that he was the one guy Vince never shouted at. And obviously it's the one she's in Vince's house, she's got that empire, blah blah and that, but King was still a big name in wrestling, a very big name. And you can imagine if you kind of like piss him off, there's a sizable chunk in the south where he's got a lot of sway. I can imagine he could make things difficult if he wanted to.
I was about to say, if you pissed him off and say Lawler went to Nitro, that would have been a massive loss for Vince.
We're not. I see again because the Attitude Era, like we're talking about, as if him walking out is years and years away. It's not that far away to the situation where we're looking at where he did walk out and he did say he'd go to Nitro. Nitro, for by all accounts, as far as I'm aware, wasn't interested, and it fizzled out to nothing. And he was back in a year or something. It didn't seem like he did actually have that much sway, in my opinion.
When was it he left the game? Was it the end of 2000 or was it the start of 2001?
It was just before WrestleMania 17, wasn't it?
Yeah,
because that's why Paul Heyman was there.
Yeah, they fired the cat, and Jerry said, if you fire her, then you fire me. And apparently Vince said, yeah, all right, sorry, bye-bye.
Yeah.
Right.
Gave him a shrug.
Where was Nitro at that point? No, where was WCW at that point? They must have been last chance.
I suppose, yeah. I guess that's the one type of time when you can say so much happened in that small time. Maybe not for the Fed, I guess, but at least for Nitro, it was the difference between being on top of the mountain and picking up the litter on the bottom.
Yeah, Jerry's commentary has certainly not aged well here. Brian actually calls Taka slanty-eyed at one point, which...
Wow.
It's just the sound of the pay-per-view dying, isn't it?
And it's just, again, it's like, know that like this kind of like casual racism isn't abhorrent enough in its own, but the fact that these guys are having this really good match and there is no focus on it.
It's
from a production point of view. I mean, it's on him. Sorry.
You turn it into a bit of a joke match, a bit of a gimmick match. When they're having a legit competition out there, and you've just turned it into too sexy and the fucking casual racism hour.
If we think about this match and then the way that the NWA title is being treated exactly at this time, the whole thing is just a metaphor for the hard beeline towards the word entertainment is during this entire era. How quickly Vince was happy to leave good work like this behind and properly focus on the Jerry Springer style product. Basically, to me anyway, I feel that's right on show with this entire pay-per-view tonight.
I watched that Brawl for All, Dark Side of the Ring, the other day actually, and yeah, they were talking, like Russo was talking heavily about the Jerry Springer show and how they wanted to be like that.
It's something that I hadn't actually, because we're all British, we haven't actually watched it, but I was either watching that and they were showing clips from that, but I think I was watching another Netflix show where they were showing Jerry Springer clips, and all I could think, like, you see, honestly, watch a montage and you're like, dear God, this is a wrestling promo, circa 1998, whatever. Like, it's so wrestling, it's unreal, or at least wrestling pivoted to that direction so hard. Like, it's scary how much they lifted from that show.
Well, I was going to say it was a real shame for Brian's racism, because other than that, he actually has he's got quite the commentary voice. I was going to say, like, he's got a really fit for play-by-play commentary voice. Getting into the actual match, there's a senton suicide dive by Pantera. I nearly gave it a standing ovation inside my bedroom. Like, I really thought it was incredible. It's really, really great stuff.
And that's what I'm saying back to me, like, that's on me, kind of like judging Pantera coming out thinking, this guy doesn't look like a crazy way. He's not going to flap at the stage. And, that guy was fucking poetry in motion. He was so fluid and everything he did.
Yeah, a heck of a match, and to the point where, obviously me bringing that up earlier, you can't believe he wasn't utilised more moving into the future, especially seeing the light heavyweight championship was still predominantly featured for another year or so. I guess it's frightening to think.
I think this should have been the opening match. I think this should have been the thing that really would have got people unglued going into the pay-per-view. It really feels like this could have definitely taken precedence over Mero and Goldust versus the Headbangers.
I don't understand the booking at all. Like, we've talked about it a bunch of people. If you always start with the Barnstormer, but then it's just kind of dangerous in this instance because, like we said, we preferred this match overall, kind of thing. Like, I wouldn't want this to be at the start. I needed it as a sort of mouthwash after what was Maro and Goldust and the Headbangers.
Yeah. Taka gets the win. In hindsight, it kind of feels like it should have been Taka versus Bryan going into Mania 14. Like, they seem to be building a real Taka-Bryan heated rivalry here that goes absolutely nowhere. I'm going to give this 4 out of 5. Absolutely loved it. Nice.
I'll agree with that. And I think, we were saying with the Brian Christopher angle as well, it was a build-up to Mania. So is it one of those where you want to park it as well?
Again, I'm not complaining because we did get Taka versus Aguila, which is one of my favourite matches of all time. I really, really love that, but it just feels like from a storyline perspective, it would have been much easier to do Taka versus Bryan. So immediately after this, we get the AOL Terry Funk and Mick Foley segment. I know I'm going to be alone in saying this, but I actually really like the chunky 1998 laptops, much more than the laptops of today.
Was there anything more entertaining than watching Terry Funk pretending he knew what a laptop was? That made my pay-per-view.
Yeah. Well, I picked up, obviously this is the start of the Attitude Era. Everything's catered towards very, very deep reds and deep blacks and all that. We're going for a more muted colour scheme, and you have like this lime green with orange and blue kind of background in the AOL segment. It feels very, very 1995.
Yeah.
And it just completely destroys any sort of sense of attitude up until now.
What do you guys think of Chainsaw Charlie as a gimmick?
I found it strange to take such a recognisable and legendary wrestler in Terry Funk, put him with a guy who he's genuinely not just best friends with, but had an incredible career and rivalry with, put a mask on him and try and pretend to people that it's not Terry Funk.
Yeah, well, watching this, it was like, what do you think of Chainsaw Charlie? And it's like, well, it doesn't matter because I saw Terry Funk.
Yeah. And that's the kind of pretend for him when he first came in, when he had the mask on before people knew it was Terry Funk, but they weren't letting you know it was Terry Funk because this tights never came off. And then I remember just one day they kind of just like called him Terry, just like referred to him as Terry Funk, like it was always Terry Funk, but they were still calling him Chainsaw Charlie. It was just a really strange thing. Like Terry Funk was Clark Kent and Chainsaw Charlie was Superman, and you're just supposed to know they're the same person. But this is wrestling, remember? And sometimes the fans need to be told, not because they don't know, is they don't know if they're supposed to know.
Yeah.
Well, I could never work out, especially now that Russo's doing, he's kind of the head writer and that, and Russo was very, very concentrated on real stuff, real angles, real names, real faces and all that. Like there's a segment, WWF used to do this show called Livewire, which was basically an in-studio thing where it was supposed to be interviews and that with the guys, and there's a whole episode, there's a clip on YouTube where Russo's talking to Doc Hendricks, but I'm not going to do the Vince Russo voice because I can't do that New York Boston twang. But he basically says you're not Doc Hendricks, you're Michael PSAs. You used to be in the Freebirds and all that. And Doc Hendricks is no. But I could never understand why at a time like this, Chainsaw Charlie, like that just does not scream 1998.
For context, there's the FMW story when Cactus Jack Mick Foley came into the Fed. Someone walked up to him, the likes of a Pritchard or something, and said, "Hey man, I really, really loved your stuff in FMW," where he obviously would have been with Terry Funk, etc. Overhearing this, Vince McMahon turned around and says, "Listen, pal, I think you'll find it's ECW." Okay. Like he was clueless. He was clueless to the point wherein it's important to mention FMW had a Leatherface character, a guy that came out dressed as Leatherface with the chainsaw. And I'm like, so clearly these guys know each other. Like, is there going to be a shoot interview with Leatherface that's going to come out on the web and just be like, I hate Terry Funk. That guy's a crook. He's a prick.
Yeah. Right, going into Quebecers versus Godwins, of all the guys to bring back from your kind of your earlier years, Jacques Rougeau and Pierre Carl-Oulet, it seemed like very strange workhorses to bring back. Like, it just feels like there was a wider pool of guys that they had their phone numbers. I could never understand why the Quebecers all get them on the phone. We've got to get them back.
I'm more concerned with the fact that we'll see the Godwins wrestle again.
Yeah.
I totally agree with what you've said, but I was like, okay, well, the Quebecers, who are they wrestling? Oh, for fuck's sake.
Very, very telling that the Godwins get a face reaction when Henry is wearing that T-shirt and they've got those knee pads symbols. I think we might have to cancel Texas.
There's some flags in the crowd as well that are kind of on display.
I think that's a good idea to just completely, just the whole state of Texas, man, and everything that's ever come out of it. Just, I'm happy to lose King of the Hill over this.
Are you happy to lose Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Undertaker?
Shawn Michaels?
Oh shit, yeah, he's from Texas.
Yeah.
Shit,
like half of your boys are from Texas, son.
Because I don't know, watching the last ride and seeing Taker's choice of attire, I'm happy to leave him at the door. I mean, Shawn Michaels, he's bald now, he's not got long hair. I don't recognise him. Yeah, fuck it, let's
As long as you lose him now.
Yeah.
I wanted to point out that whenever I'm sort of like... I do my notes and I'm preparing for the show, I always like to look at the Wikipedia for some random facts. And obviously this is a random fan that's wrote this. I'll see if this lines up with what you guys thought with the intro to this match. The tag team match between the Quebecers and the Godwins began with lots of technical wrestling. With a mixture of shoulder barges, arm twists, and armbar takedowns. This guy's worse than Lewis for trying to put over this era. Like,
yeah. And again, this is during the high point of the Godwins' kind of revival. This is like when they've just adopted the kind of sub-deliverance gimmick. And could you do anything with Henry Godwin at this point? I mean, it feels like a big evil racist heel, well past its prime at this point, certainly. Again, as problematic as it is, and it is absolutely problematic, Henry Godwin wearing the Confederate T-shirt, while with the scratchy logo in the bottom left-hand corner, actually weirdly fits.
Yeah, it's to hackney a phrase. It's very much of its time.
I mean, it's not even the most controversial storyline involving race that they went and did. That last year, that's not even a storyline involving race. Actually, that's just blatant Confederacy.
I was about to say, they're doing this in the mid-2000s as well. So 1998, it's a different country, man.
Jacques Rougeau's bald spot is the stuff of nightmares. It just screams big shave at half energy. And I made like 3 or 4 notes on this, and it's all design. Like, no, there is nothing technical to the match. It's atrocious. Godwins get the win. 2.5 out of 5. No, not 2.5 out of 5. 1.5 out of 5.
What the fuck match were you watching, son?
1.5 out of 5. In fact, 1 out of 5. I like the Godwins matches if they're short, and by short I mean like 40 seconds short. But thankfully this very, very quick, which it needed to be. But it's still horrible. 1 out of 5.
I mean, for me, it's important to mention that those are my notes for. Oh, you can't see it for the Taka match, like paragraphs and paragraphs, which we never go over, but it's just important for me because I have a bad memory. Then we get to the Quebecers versus the Godwins, and it's blank. There's a reason I had to go to Wikipedia for this match.
Yeah, this was very much one of the 7 matches. Well, it's an interesting.
Sorry, you could have not mentioned this match. Now I would have forgot. It was on the card.
Yeah, you could have skipped over it, and I'd have been fine with it. But yeah, it's a case of it's an interesting irony that they don't have slop in the bucket; they just have it in the ring.
Sorry.
I think we should just omit this and get on to the next thing. The Attitude Era TV spot. I just find it kind of funny that while we're doing the whole "this is serious," I'm not a real athlete, and then it's immediately followed up with Jeff Jarrett doing his strut dance in a white and orange leather overcoat.
But we're talking about the NWA title, damn it! It's serious wrestling. Come on.
This whole NWA storyline was, I'm sure it sounded amazing on paper, but yeah.
I don't feel like it did though. Like, I don't understand, other than the fact that they badly needed exposure on a big product at this point, I can't see why they agreed to it.
Oh, I can't see why they agreed to it. For me, it's the idea of, this is a time where they've still got actually they're just coming in. It was still, kayfabe was still kept relatively to an extent, and they were only just starting to really mention rival promotions and things like that and other wrestlers. And the idea of a wrestling invasion angle, bearing in mind I've no idea that WCW is going to go tits up and be bought by WWF at this point. So the idea of another wrestling company kind of invading, it's quite exciting to think about.
It's almost like we saw it somewhere else, a la the Outsiders in the NWO.
Yes.
Well, I don't think there was ever an end game to this NWA invasion. I think that's what killed it. I don't think there was ever any long-term plans. It just feels like something, by the way, we'll do this sporadically for a couple of months and then that's it. It was the fact it was supposed to contrast as well. So you've got WWF, it's quite colourful characters and that, but they were going to bring in the real wrestling. So I'm like, okay, so you're going to do is shit on your own product by introducing a storyline, by bringing in guys you're claiming to be better, but you're actually going to really do is bury them and in turn bury the NWA and bury quote unquote real wrestling. Vince, you're a fucking genius.
He's breaking my heart. I mean, anything that Jim Cornette can get passionate about, I'm usually behind. You can see him at the side of the ring there with his manager's license. Loved that spot, by the way.
Yeah.
This is the bit that I struggle with, is I'm a massive mark for all these corny wrestling things. I think I mentioned last week that my favourite idea for a heel is someone that gives out on closed fist punches. It's great, but at the same time, it's being so buried that it's like almost making me feel dirty for being like, come on, man, let's go.
The first noticeable thing I picked up on when I just laughed my ass off during this was that it's when Bradshaw's making his way to the ring, and obviously Bradshaw's got this really uber serious look in his face, and it just cuts to a woman in the audience who's got like this really menacing grimace, and she's like clapping with the Stepford wife's face, and it's like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah, she's got like Confederate flags in her eyes. She's got an open carry permit.
What's up with Bradshaw trying to be Stan Hansen?
Yeah, I made a note of that. Did Stan Hansen have his lawyers on the phone when he was watching this?
He doesn't
No,
have lawyers, man. He just meets them in the car park afterwards. Don't you know Stan Hansen?
If you remember, this was just post the new Blackjacks, so they went and repackaged Bradshaw and Wyndham as the new Blackjacks. It didn't really work because, well, why would it? So they went and make Bradshaw single, and then you say just kind of inject a bit of Stan Hansen in there as well for good measure, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that really kind of bothers me during this is how badly JR's trying to get him over.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He sells everything Bradshaw does like he's fucking Hogan at the peak of the peak of Hulkamania. And I don't mind Bradshaw overall. I mean, I really don't. But here, he hadn't earned anything to get to this kind of level. And I remember it might have been 98 Royal Rumble, or the year later. I think it was 98 when Bradshaw came out, and JR just gushed over them the entire time. And you kept thinking, they've got plans for this guy. I just didn't realise it was going to be 10 years from now.
Should never have touched the handlebar. It's a fine piece of facial hair right there. That's the only good thing I'm ever going to say about Bradshaw.
I don't even think he's really that bad in this match. It's just they put him in a position where it didn't work for his character here. He's supposed to be a big, rugged Texas bruiser type guy, but he's a babyface. And yeah, I didn't like it.
I don't think I very much agree with Thomas in that. Even with, it felt like he hadn't done anything up to this point. You see him slapping the ropes with the rope and stuff, and he's meant to be this sort of like badass character. It was just so, and the landscape of what was going on in the company at the time, it was so unconvincing. And there's me dying to love it, and I would really kind of struggled, especially against my boy, Big Jeffy baby.
I was going to say, this match has to feature the first referee actually sees the weapon spot in history.
Yeah.
I was all over that, by the way. Again, it's as if I went back in time and booked this. I was, again, all over it.
And again, getting back to Jeff Jarrett, the NWA muscle consists of Barry Windham, Ricky Morton, and Robert Gibson. I was going to say, if this was a comedy, this would be the point where you would hear like the sad trombone music. Bradshaw wins via disqualification. I'm going to go 2 out of 5. Nothing special.
Yeah, I'll get a generous 2 out of 5 because I do like Jeff Jarrett. I think he does okay here. And Bradshaw looks like a wrestler here. He looks legit because he just beats people up. And I like the spot.
Bad.
Yeah, I liked the spot with Cornette. I liked the manager's license stuff and that. That was quite good. But yeah, it wasn't. It was there.
Yeah, it was a wrestling match. I'll go along with the 2 out of 5 because there wasn't anything particularly bad about it. But at the same time, I just didn't. Yeah.
I'm going to go as far to say that if I was in charge at the time, I would have stuck the nose down and just booked every match like this until the fans liked it. Because this is how I would want to watch my wrestling. But at the same time, I would be lying if I could give it anything more than 2.5 stars, I guess. The half coming from the fact that I just, that this is usually my jam, but it's out of tune.
Right, following this, we get the Triple H and China interview with regarding Shawn and Shawn's injury. Assuming, I'm going to play creative booker here, assuming Shawn wasn't injured, what would you guys have made the main event of this pay-per-view?
I don't think there was anything wrong with the multi-tag thing that they were doing. It was very much this felt very much like a glorified house show. I know we've kind of mentioned that before with the first In Your Houses, that's what they really were. But it did start to become their own kind of pay-per-views and had that kind of status about them. And previous ones we've reviewed have had that. This doesn't. This just feels like a throwaway pay-per-view in between 2 big ones. And it does feel like a house show in many, many ways. Throwaway matches, getting so many multi-tag team matches and tag team matches. It's anything to get the guys on the card here. And I'd have just done the same match, to be fair, just with Shawn Michaels in it.
Yeah, I'd have literally had this match, but just the X, same thing, non-sanctioned. dirty scrap, but yeah, just with Shawn Michaels in it, because again, it's in the lead up to Mania. You don't really want to have any kind of blockbuster championship match.
And you get the Austin Michaels VTs and stuff like that.
Yeah. You maybe have a big spot with the two of them, or maybe even try and like force them onto the same team, and there's a bit of a dirty betrayal. But yeah, you don't want to rock the boat too much, to be honest.
I would have had Bradshaw versus Jeff Jarrett.
But
you know,
and a manager's license on a pole match.
Wow.
the greatest wrestling match ever. But yeah, no, I'd have kept it the same. Everyone gets a payday. You don't want to blow your load, kind of thing. I don't think I agree with the fact that at the end of the day, it is a pay-per-view. The fans should be getting more for their money, but that more goes with my gripe with the consistency overall, as opposed to the main event. And loads of big faces in the main event would have been just as fine, so long as the rest of the pay-per-view could have kept up with that. And at the moment, we're obviously struggling.
I think we have to address the elephant in the room here. Was DX an NWO imitation? At the time, it feels very much like the anti-authority sort of spray-painted T-shirts. It feels, especially during this.
In a way, yeah, but based on the fact that the Clique was a real-life backstage thing, that it didn't really feel like anybody was ripping each other off in a sense. It did look that way because of it kind of came first, if it came just after. But it was those guys. If it was anybody else, maybe playing DX, but knowing the fact that it was the guys who were legit pals with outsiders, it did feel more organic and more representative if it was really going on.
Yeah, the DX felt a bit more rebellious as well. The NWL felt like a clean, polished, well-organised anti-authority establishment.
Yeah.
DX were more like a ragtag bunch of misfits giving the finger to the man. So I think they were the same but very different.
Yeah.
Anti-authority was like, and at the time anyway, like we've talking about what's dated and what isn't. They did hit the nail right on the head with the DX thing. And Steve Austin, like for all the things they got wrong, they got some things very, very right.
As soon as one interview ends, we get another interview, an interview with the Nation of Domination. First thing I picked up on here, there's a real father-son dynamic between The Rock and Farouk. I don't know if any other guys picked up on that, but I really got the whole, this guy's coming for his spot. Actually, another thing, this is where the infamous @Rock eye-rolling gift comes from. That's amazing. He's selling like fuck in this interview, and he's not even taking any bumps. It's outstanding.
This interview is the highlight of the entire pay-per-view for me. I don't mean that because of it and how poor the rest of it is. It's when Farouk's talking and The Rock's just mugging to the camera, and he keeps kind of like flexing his pecs and going, "I'm the champ," mouthing, "I'm the champ." The Rock's the champ. I'm the champ, and I just couldn't take my eyes off him. I'm going, this guy is just money. He's just dripping of absolute money, and obviously we all know what happened to The Rock. And if it went south, for example, if it went
He's
south, and The Rock
mid card for years and then quiet retirement.
May he rest in peace.
But you know what I mean? If, for example, they never cashed in them for whatever reason, backstage portals or that, and you went back and watched this, you'd be like, oh, what a missed opportunity. Look at this guy. But yeah, there was no denying this guy was set for the top. I had so much fun watching that interview. I have no idea what Farouk said. And I love Bronson. And it was I just couldn't get my eyes off him. Just the whole, I'm the champ that rocks it. I've loved it. Absolutely loved it.
It felt like a real changing of the guard moment.
Yeah.
We're watching a very, like, obviously messed up order, but this feels like the moment where it's sort of like a wink. It's like, that's The Rock.
Only a year prior to this, The Rock's getting booed at the building.
Yeah.
It's such a 180, but like I feel like every pay-per-view we watch in this era is just it's frustrating. This is when I get frustrated with Michaels, and I struggle to separate the talented wrestler from the politic and drug addict in the back kind of thing. I really struggle with the guy for that reason. Like, I can't pay attention to him before he's returned in the 2000s because you just look at what it could have been, sort of thing, and I just begin to get so frustrated because the only thing holding it back is Michaels himself. The second he was gone, everyone got a rocket to their back and it was on.
Yeah, I'd completely agree with that. I think when I talk about Shawn Michaels being one of the greatest, I do talk about that 20th, first century.
Yeah,
Shawn Michaels.
It's night and day, and it's mostly because he was willing to actually play the game and put someone over. And because I think I was looking. Oh damn! Never mind, because I was about to talk about. But I mean, there's so many instances of that's not going to work for me. But he doesn't. But he doesn't realize that it's part of a long program. It was Vader. It was in reference of Vader. I think it was something like, "Oh, just drop the belt to him now. He'll have it for a couple of months, and then you'll get it back in your hometown. You'll be hot as ever." No, don't want to do that. He can't look outside the situation to realize how it'd be better for everyone. And
yeah,
I mean, not that I need an excuse to talk about Vader, but we'll get into Vader in length later on in the pay-per-view. Getting into the actual match, God, what a come down for Shamrock. I mean, a month and a half earlier he was main eventing the DX pay-per-view, and here he is in the 8-man tag. You have to feel sorry for the guy.
Yeah.
A lot of it came from his attitude, though. I'm pretty sure, and his timekeeping and how his general demeanor was backstage. And to be honest, having followed both his professional wrestling career and MMA, I'm down with that. I'm pretty sure that was the truth.
Yeah, I did say something about Ken Shamrock being, the most underutilized WWF talent, and someone did reply to it like, yeah, apparently he was a fucking nightmare though. So I can understand it, but again, it's a real shame not to see that guy absolutely running with the ball as well.
I don't feel bad for him. I feel bad for us.
Yes.
He couldn't have it together enough that we could have seen his full potential.
And it's amazing. He's like one of those few guys that you can actually close your eyes and imagine with like the Winged Eagle title around his waist. It doesn't actually look that out of place.
It's not that hard to imagine, no.
Yeah.
I like to imagine him having a program with Lesnar as well.
Oh
yeah.
Program Bangle.
That would have been good.
Yeah.
They got behind that. But especially seeing his obviously early Brock Lesnar was very professional wrestling. The guy we've got now, like we referenced before, is very MMA orientated, where it's more of a smash type situation. But I would have loved to have seen Angle because both of them know how to play the game very well and can go for a very long amount of time.
Yeah.
During the Nation of Domination's entrance, there's the Rocky Sucks chants, which are absolutely emanating throughout the building. And just like Thomas was saying earlier on, I was going to say, he's actually, the Rock is living proof there is no such thing as bad publicity.
Yeah.
Because there's one thing that they're never, during his entrances, whether he's been a face or a heel, has been quiet. Like, even as a heel, like, he has the most heel heat of anybody on this pay-per-view, and it's amazing because he's more like an upper mid-carder at this stage. Which is really, really incredible.
The great thing here is the difference between that go away heat and the genuine heel heat. And here, this is like Rocky sucks in the same way of the Kurt Angle you suck type idea. It's not a kind of case we genuinely like you. It's we just hate you because you're such a cocky, arrogant prick. And he's even the way he sells the chants and stuff like that.
There's the head jack.
It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Said it before and I'll say it again. It's his best heel run to me personally.
I have came round. I would agree with that, Cammy. I think this is his best heel heat. I think the 2003 run is perfect, but for different reasons.
Yeah, it's not actual heel heat. It's Rocky.
Although the Mother Canuckers promo in Canada is better than anything here, but it's only the one thing that's better.
I think anyone on the roster can go to Toronto or wherever in Canada and get heat. To be honest, the Fed are just fantastic at doing it. Whether they're sacrificing their boy or whatever.
Yeah. Well, getting into NOD versus Shamrock Ahmed and DOA, as bad as this match could have been, at least Los Pericuas weren't on it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's always reasons to be positive and
5 stars.
This goes back to what I was saying about this. It's just kind of house show. It's just to get everybody in the card type thing, and I'm not saying The Rock. Well, Shamrock could have easily fought for the IC belt here. 2
Yeah.
months after fighting for the World Heavyweight belt. This could have just been The Rock versus Shamrock easily, and be a much better match. Maybe too good a match for what we're looking for at this stage. I mean, Ahmed Johnson still feuding the nation here. How long's that been? 2 years?
There's a very, very weird spot when Ahmed gets the tag and Mark Henry gets the tag, and for some reason there's a round of applause from the audience when it looks like these two are about to lock up. And I was thinking, was there a story here? With these two, should these two have done a program or something? Because you've got the guy who is the actual world's strongest man and the guy who looks like the world's strongest man. Like, maybe more could have been done with these two locking horns or something.
I don't know. Ahmed Johnson just wasn't very good though, was it? And Mark Henry here is very, very green.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a reason why he's in a stable. He's well hidden.
Getting on to Ahmed Johnson, because I think this is actually one of his last kind of big pay-per-view appearances. I mean, what a waste. I mean, it feels like, the guy, had he not got injured so often and had he not had a penchant for injuring others, it feels like he just looks like he could have been a major player.
Yeah.
It does. It looks, apart from the obvious, he looks like a kind of Vince kind of guy. But he's just a penchant for injuries, injuring other people. Apparently his backstage attitude was pretty poor as well. So he didn't really do himself any favours in that aspect.
Well, I mean, it's very easy to imagine him getting a lot of kind of subjective racism backstage. But apparently from like all of interviews I've watched from like, with Ron Simmons and Mark Henry and that, apparently he had heat with The Rock and everybody, like guys who, you just shouldn't have been able to piss off, he was pissing off. So I think it was more of a universal. He was, Yeah,
Mark Henry does not speak highly of him at all.
No.
I can't imagine The Rock being pissed off either. Like,
it would be in character.
Yeah, not shoot pissed off.
No, it would be, if The Rock was shoot pissed off, it would still be like, it would be The Rock in character. That's how he would react to you.
But if you piss The Rock off, you've done it wrong.
How could you piss off Maui? This match really highlights, I think, the workhorse nature of Nation of Domination. I feel like we unfairly clump in Nation of Domination with DOA and Los Barriquas, whereas NOD were so much better, were so good as heels. I think they just get swept under the rug quite often.
The problem you have is you've got the future face of the company sitting right there, and it's apparent to everyone. How are you going to get over when you're contending with that man? That's the problem.
I mean, it's interesting. You've got the Nation here. You've got compared to Los Barriquas and DOA, for example, you've got Farouk, former world champion, Mark Henry, future world champion, D'Lo Brown. He had a good run. The Rock, and Kama Mustafa reinvents himself as a Godfather and becomes one of the most popular characters of all time. So there's a lot of potential that does get tapped into there. It's not there in DOA. It's not there in Los Barriquas.
D'Lo Brown, he had a good run. That was my favourite part of that. So, he had a good run. As Russo's best friend.
I don't know if you guys picked up towards the end of the match. Skull tries to tag in Farouk, forgetting that they're on opposite sides, and throws a slap. That was the best moment of this match. I clapped. I gave that a round of applause. And the minute after he realises that he's tagged in the guy from the opposite team, he throws a slapped punch at The Rock, and The Rock just completely no-sells it. It was wonderful. It was truly wonderful.
It's not what I call a classic, to be honest.
I'm going to buck the trend here. I've always wanted we get one of the most iconic JR calls of all time at the end with the Shamrock. Shamrock gets the win. You know what I'm going to say? I love this. I absolutely love this. See, in terms of fan participation, like the audience absolutely made this match. I love this. I absolutely love it.
It was a terrible match, but great banter. Absolutely great banter.
But normally,
all the stuff after it was good.
Normally we look at these when we are having a good time. Normally nobody else is, basically. But for the simple fact that the crowd clearly were, no matter what they were doing, whether it be cheering, booing, whatever, they done their job successfully, and for that they deserve a decent score, regardless of the fact that you're looking at it and your retinas are burning. It's I would hazard to say it would be 3 out of 5.
I'd give it a 3 just for that absolutely bungled tag.
But yeah, and again, the volcanic finish at the end where you've got 4 guys fighting 4 guys inside the ring, and the fans are just completely, there's not one part arse in the building. It's like levels of fan interaction, which I'm going to go 3.5 out of 5. I was very, very impressed with the fans more than anything else.
I'm going to stick with 3 purely because I just can't bring myself to give a DOA match anything higher. That is my solid line in the sand.
No one can blame you for that.
Following this, we get the Stone Cold interview. Austin tries to say, not to say that I don't give 2 shits at the end, but he manages to save himself just at the last second before he drops the S-bomb. It was real skin of the teeth stuff. It was real tension building. And again, how jarring does Austin look in a polo shirt? He just looks like a total golf dad.
It makes no sense at all. That man should never wear a shirt.
That's the most homoerotic thing that's ever been said on this podcast.
It's going to get worse before it gets better.
The second we start talking about that man more.
You can't keep those pecs under wraps.
Segueing into the next match, it's Vader time. Vader versus Kane. Known to some degree, Vader, who kind of felt like the Kane or what was intended as the Kane of the new generation, versus Kane, who's obviously the Kane of the Attitude Era. It feels like, and again, what I'm going to do is whenever we address Vader in any of these future pay-per-views, I'm going to talk about how I could have booked him or how he should have been booked, more or less. But keep putting. I think this match was a huge mistake. I think Kane and Vader should have been kept as far apart from each other as to if you're going to rebuild Vader. Huge mistake.
I mean, these are 2 guys that I'm a big fan of overall, and Kane, to be fair, Glenn Jacobs, he's still trying to kind of find his feet in this character. He's still trying to see through that mask, and he's still always a bit kind of clunky here. Fair enough, Kane's official debut was against Vader in a house show before he fought Big Foley, and his official TV debut. It seemed a very clash of styles here. It didn't really work, and I didn't mind the finish here. I liked the point of it, the idea of portraying Kane as, again, this monster who's just like demolishing the guy who physically stood up to him and possibly could have beat him, because I love the video package this as well. I love this era of Kane when you're watching Raw every week and like Crush is going to fight, I don't know, somebody for Lost Quiz, and then the lights would go out and Kane's music came in, you're like, oh, it could happen at any point. You were watching Raw, waiting for Kane to come out, and you knew when he came out it was never going to end well. Then Vader attacks back, you think, well, this is quite interesting.
Yeah.
But the match didn't work, unfortunately, for me.
Again, one of the things that this video package illustrates, now obviously I know we have to get to Kane versus Taker, so obviously Vader can't go over, but I was actually watching this thing, how much more this could have meant to Vader's career had it been Vader versus Kane at Mania 14. Like, obviously I know that wasn't the long-term story, obviously the story, it had to be Taker and Kane, but one of the things the opening package really illustrates was that Vader was actually the first guy to get his hands on Kane and really brutalise him. You see in the promo, Vader's throwing the bear paws at Kane and really getting his good shit in, and it just, I love
it. Yeah, as I said, the build up and the story to it, I thought made perfect sense. I just thought when it came to the actual match itself, it wasn't great.
He's very, very lean looking when he's coming to the ring. I don't know if any of you guys picked up on this, but towards the start of the match, Vader comes out. Vader's looking a lot more noticeably smaller here than he was than Canadian Stampede and Bad Blood. You guys pick up on that?
I didn't actually, no.
No. It feels like wherever Kane went, there was a laser pointer pointed at his hair. This is very, very 98 pay-per-view. Vader's obviously on my Mount Rushmore. Big shock. I know. I can't wait till we start covering these WCW stuff on the way up the road. And again, it feels like there was still a lot of momentum left in Vader. It felt like there was actually a Vader chant during this match at one point, so it felt like you could have still done something with him. Now, I will be fair, Vader's 43 years old during this match. I forgot he was actually 41 when he signed with the company. Do you guys think there was still enough, or do you think the wear and tear had kind of set in at this point and it was like...
I think for anyone by that point, you're starting to creak a little bit when you've had a whole career of basically been dropped on some wooden planks every night. It takes a toll on anyone. It doesn't matter how good you are. Your best years are behind you, unfortunately.
Yeah, Vader's the kind of guy that you'd have no issues saying, yeah, you should have give him a title, give him a run and stuff. But yeah, I didn't even realise his age here. He's not a guy, at this time in Vader's career, he's not the guy you want to be building the company around, because you don't know how reliable physically he's going to be.
Because about to say, if that guy's ACL went at any point, and you've put the belt on him, and you've built him up to be that big, so you've lost everything, because he's not coming back.
I think all the years he was fighting in Japan as well, doing strong style every night, probably would have taken this.
This guy's fucking eye fell out.
Yeah.
And he pushed it back in wearing a sweaty leather glove. So.
Exactly. It's at the age of 43. 43? Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of us won't be in good shape. But when you've done that, you especially are not going to be in good shape.
I didn't think we'd get through a podcast without Lewis's prejudice against strong style popping up at any point. But I think age.
I don't hate strong style completely.
You just
we've been over it. We've been over it. But what I was going to say is, I think we're forgetting as well, especially in this era, Vince's prejudice towards age is still very, very prominent. Like, we're not so far removed from the point where, you know, obviously there was the Royd scandal, the golden era, jumping into like new age, whatever. You know, he dropped a lot of people, but then like turning people away like Macho Man Randy Savage, who's now still working fantastically in WCW. That month he wrestled against Sting on Monday Night Nitro, again a Monday night show, not a pay-per-view, which arguably probably done just as well, if not better, than this pay-per-view. For him to be the size that he was, which was obviously definitely by this point a concern, seeing as there is records of him being sent with Yokozuna to fat camps kind of thing. There's no way in hell their opinion is anywhere but ground zero kind of thing when it comes to Vader. They're just using him as a tool at this point to get Kane over. And I'm pretty much with Thomas, where as much as I do have a bias towards Vader, I don't think I mind him being sacrificed to just sent to the slaughter like this. It's just the way they done it that I had problems with. It was everything Kane is in at this point should be the most exciting thing in the world, and this wasn't that.
Yeah.
And that's the main problem here. So I say, it doesn't feel like they're completely burned out on Vader just yet, though, because during this match, it's quite actually, I was surprised with just how evenly paced it was. Like, it wasn't a complete squash match. Vader did get his shit in. There's actually a spot, I couldn't believe it, where Vader powerbombs Kane. And I thought, surely the big monster, you're never going to allow someone like Vader to get his hands on Kane like that. But, they did allow him, which I was gobsmacked. But again, Kane gets the win. I can't rate it too highly, obviously, because my boy lost, and I hold Vader very close to heart. I'm going to give it 2.5 out of 5. There's not actually many bad Vader matches we're contemplating. Fun fact: Leon mentions in his book that the wrench spot, obviously, even though it was a worked wrench, that did actually give him a shoot concussion because Glenn swung it that hard.
Good God.
So yeah, what did you guys make of this?
I'd agree, 2.5.
Yeah, I'm giving it a generous 2.5.
Sorry.
Yeah, it just wasn't all that for me. Again, it didn't excite me. It didn't get me going. it was competent. It was fair.
I would say 2.5, just because it is one of the few, if not the only, missteps that they took while booking the build to Mania with Kane. And the one thing everyone kind of looks, I mean, Glenn Jacobs' career is built off of this single build. It was that successful, and the fact that they almost mucked it up by doing something they didn't even really need to do at this point. Other than the fact that they kind of had to just kind of tread some water until Mania. It didn't need to be this much of a risk kind of thing. I sincerely don't think. I think we're right in saying that Vader's days are behind. I understand and totally 100% respect the fact that he wrestled well into his last days kind of thing. That's one of the things that totally puts him over for me. But you need to remember, probably for the last 20 years of his career, it was big man booking. He was flattening someone. He wasn't taking bumps. He could waddle all he wanted. It wasn't a big deal. And this is kind of, I feel like, the start of that moving into there. And as horrible as that will be for you to hear, Lewis, and I'm sure you don't agree with me, because your bias was coming through there like no one's business. It's sad. And that's all. I don't know if that's affecting me and making me look at this worse in hindsight. I don't know how I felt watching it on the evening with Mania coming up, but I feel like it was a misstep.
Cammy, you can slander anybody as long as you don't go for Brett or Vader.
I think I've slandered them both in this one.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah, okay, cool. No problem. Next time give me a list, I'll get through it quicker.
It's just Brett and Vader. You can go after literally anybody else.
Noted.
Right, main event time. I feel like can we talk about the set for 2 seconds, because I just realised before the main event, it's like a bigger version of the Bad Blood set. It's literally just 2 gates, and that's it. You talk about influenced by house shows. This is literally a house show, Titantron. Yeah. Good God, the D-Generation X T-shirts with the big red X, they are absolutely atrocious. That is one of the worst fucking wrestling shirts I have ever seen. Yeah,
it wasn't great.
It wasn't the In Your House 2 shirt, definitely.
Oh no, not the Lumberjacks.
No.
Lumberjacks. Our mystery man is shortly revealed after this, and he is revealed to be Savio Vega.
Hey!
Right. Let's play the obvious creative question in the room here. Who should it have been?
Do you know, watching this pay-per-view, I couldn't remember who it was, and I was like, who's it going to be, blah, blah, blah. And Savio Vega came out. I think I had the exact same reaction as the people in attendance.
I was going to say, putting a Los Boricuas member in the main event, that's fucking bold, Vince, isn't it?
It was bizarre. There was no real logic to it.
It really smacks of a company that has run out of ideas and talent, and it's like, who are we going to put in the main event now that we lost Shawn Michaels? And I think at that point, Savio Vega was just passing Vince's office. There was no reason or rhyme to it. He was just there.
Sergeant Slaughter would have made more sense at this point.
That's unfortunate, but it does.
Anybody on the roster, anybody. Ahmed Johnson, Ken Shamrock, Vader. Literally anybody, fucking anybody, and they go with Savio Vega.
It feels like, in fact, if we're talking who would you book, it feels like Savio Vega should have been in the...
He should have been literally the last person considered for
the last person considered. He should have been in the Nation Domination versus DOA match, and Shamrock should have been in the main event. Yeah, that's a complete fracture in time with WWF, because we've just watched this man go for the world title, and they've just turned around and be like, nah, we like Savio Vega more, mate.
Yeah.
It's just...
There isn't anything to say when you think of Savio Vega, and I think that's the problem here, and I think that's the problem with most of this pay-per-view, to be honest with you.
The only thing I can say about Savio Vega is that he sounds like a cheap VHS recorder. That is all I can say for Savio Vega.
Someone must have liked him, personally.
Oh, he was a
And shoot.
workhorse, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, there's no denying. I like Sal Vega as a wrestler. The Osprey Equals thing. Oh man, Vince just had he just had something on this, because just in all, you're watching the DOA and Nation thing and you're like, well, at least the Osprey Equals under there. And for some reason, they appear in one form or another in the main event.
I would turn that phrase around and saying that Vince didn't have something on them, and say that the Los Barricos must have had something on Vince, because by God, they did not miss a payday.
I think Butterbean coming out would have made more sense.
Let's not get too fancy booking here.
Yeah, this is already a dark timeline. We don't want it to get any darker.
Yeah, let's leave that for 2 or 3 years down the line when we're doing Mania 15.
Let's leave that 2 or 3 down the line. What about therapy?
Yeah. I'm going to pull out the old second creative question. Say Austin takes a bump the wrong way during this match, and in little less than a month he's going up against Michaels for the world title. Who on earth could you have put in that spot that fast?
The administrator.
At this stage, I'd probably put fucking Chains in the main event.
I don't know, man. I'd have probably got my checkbook out and just millions and just given it to Goldberg.
Yeah.
And just been like, right, you come here, knock Shawn Michaels over.
That seems like a mania move kind of thing, where they would, instead of putting someone that's worked for it over, they would get the checkbook out. It's still the mania move at this point, so why would it change then?
One of the things I really want to say was when we were doing In Your House Generation X, like, it kind of felt like Brett's shadow was looming very, very large over that, because it was the first pay-per-view since he had left. Covering Sean's here, did you get the kind of Sean's shadow looming large over this, or did it just feel like it was already Austin's thing?
Only because it was too soon after. They clearly had something in mind, and then it fell through because of that. In reality, had he left sooner, it just means that we would have been maybe a bit better off, that people would have been getting the spotlight that they rightly deserved a bit sooner, kind of thing. And again, that's just me being tough on Michaels, but I think even he would go as far to say that he deserves it too at this point.
I don't think so much it's just shadow looming large. It's the fact that there's a spare place at the table. I think the fact that everyone's pretty much moved up one in terms of like moving into the main event and everything, that he's missing. It does feel a bit half-cocked because you've lost Sean.
Mm-hmm. Do you know, I wouldn't even have put a mystery partner in. I'd have just took somebody out.
Yeah.
I'd have had like a backstage insert or something where Terry Funk gets attacked and injured. So
have we not addressed the futility of trying to injure Terry Funk? Like, the man is actually bulletproof. I made a model of this. During the match, Terry Funk takes a slam through 2 chairs and lands headfirst after sliding out of the ring onto some wooden ladders. I think it's safe to say he just doesn't get injured.
I'm amazed that Terry Funk is still alive.
I'm actually just amazed he actually has retired. I'm still waiting for...
I'm not buying it. I think it's a work.
Saudi Arabia show, Terry Funk versus Cactus Jack, an exploding barbed wire match.
I think is he not like well into his 70s now? So this must have been like even when he was at mid 50s, I want to say.
He was already deserving of retirement there, but obviously the way professional wrestling works, I doubt he could have afforded it.
75.
How would you have wrote him off? Chainsaw Charlie slips on some oil that it's falling off his chainsaw.
He gets crushed by the DX tank. That's the only way you could have killed him.
It's ironic that there's something a bit more Michael Myers
he's like
of him than there is Kane or Undertaker put together.
I don't know, man. I think in terms of taking someone out, I'd have taken the L and just like had DX like Owen Hart in the toilet or something.
That'd have been great. Oh, yeah,
Anything like that would make
100%.
sense.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, someone that's a genuine threat, and then he comes out, and then the crowd's hot because they're like, "Here's Owen."
Yeah.
That'd have been great for Owen. That'd have been. Oh man, yeah,
What about
you're
you
the
in
smartest of us
1998?
all. Yeah.
It's
It's
only the
amazing, like, literally any wrestling podcast that's covered this time period are better bookers than the actual bookers that they had during this stage in history.
yeah.
That, to be fair though, the fact that that seems so off the cuff, I'm still kind of like low-key impressed. I don't know, just fucking lock Owen in the toilet, and then Vince is like, "Yeah, okay."
I think it explains it better as well, because like, backstage attack, and it's like, yeah, but you're about to be put through again 2 chairs head first. That's not going to mean fuck all. Just go out. If Owen Hart's locked in the crapper by like the prankster DX, that makes sense. That reads for me.
Yeah.
Plus, it would have been a lot easier to have like a last-minute schmoz finish with Owen finally breaking out of the toilet. Like, that would have been.
I was about to say, and then I was going to spoil everything, but like then he comes out as the Blue Blazer.
Yeah, getting
I
into.
don't know. Savio Vega's still working today.
What?
Savio Vega is still an active wrestler.
Oh, do you mean he's still wrestling, or he's still trying to finish that match?
You know what? I think I would mark out pretty hard actually. Despite our feelings towards this run of pay-per-views off the back of the constant barrage of the Los Pericos, I think I would still lose my mind if the music hit and the man himself was standing at the top of the ramp or the steps, whatever the indie show would allow.
I want to watch today's episode of The Last Ride, and I want it to be that next year's Mania is Taker versus Savio Vega. Vince, if you're listening, make it happen.
They'll bring back No Way Out since we're covering it. I mean, why not?
Yeah.
I'm actually like quite worried that the next like pay-per-view there's going to be a spot where someone gets locked in the toilet.
Yeah, no way out. No way out the performance center.
It'll be like Vince ripping up a royalties check with O. Butler written on the front of it. Getting into the finish of that, Austin wins. I have never seen a tag get a standing ovation before. Towards the end of this match, when Austin gets tagged in, the place erupts just when China crumbles as well. I'm going to give this a 2 out of 5. It feels like a very overbooked main event. I wish this had just been Austin and one other person.
Yeah.
But again, could Austin and Triple H have been the main event when Triple H hasn't been properly developed yet? But
I mean, to be honest,
what was all that?
Carry on, Thomas. No, you go, mate.
No, I was just going to say, I think you could have at this pay-per-view because it doesn't mean anything. You could have just threw Triple H the main event against Austin and they did the bat an eyelid.
It'd make more sense than Kane versus Vader.
Yeah. To be honest, that's what I was going to say. Like, these are, big time house shows. Just stick your developmental guy against your growing talent, throw some shit at the wall and see what sticks.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give it 2 out of 5. Owen should have been locked in the toilet.
Has the Hart name not already been dragged through the shit enough?
Really?
Not on this show yet.
No. Right, so what do we make out of In Your House, No Way Out of Texas as a whole?
It was a WWF pay-per-view in 1998. It was 7 matches and 2 hours and 36 minutes long.
Yes, I agree.
I think it's important to mention that we referenced the fact that last week we're going to block record shows, and the simple thought of having to finish that and then cover this after it was hard enough. Actually, just doing this show today, I think all 4 of us would agree, it's so mentally tiring to think of anything creative to come up with this pay-per-view. And it's simply not, it's not actually because there's any big crimes being committed here. It's the lack thereof almost. It's a big shrug. as far as pay-per-views go and booking.
Yeah, it's complete nothing. It's bland to the point of inoffensiveness.
I think it was quite funny doing the whole idea of the split structure. Like 1 week we'll do an episode from 1998 and the other episode we'll do an episode from 1996. I was originally really looking forward to doing the 98 in your houses and dreading the 96 in your houses, and now I'm absolutely buzzing for the 96 in your houses, and I'm dreading the idea of covering the 98 in your houses.
The disillusionment of the Attitude Era is clearly starting to fall away from this podcast.
The roasting mistakes.
Yeah, the winners wrote the history book, and in hindsight, it maybe wasn't as fantastic a time as we once thought.
Yeah, I'm going to go 2 out of 5 for the pay-per-view as a whole.
Same.
Yeah, I'll give it that just for the fact we got to dissect it, have a laugh about it, and rebooked it with Owen in the toilet. Because otherwise, I just wouldn't give it a score. I just wouldn't look at it. I wouldn't speak to it. I wouldn't engage with it.
I think we're the only people to go back and watch this. I'm pretty certain. Unless there's someone out there chronicling the NWA invasion or something like that, I can't see why anyone would have possibly went back and watched this.
Yeah.
I'm only giving it 2 out of 5 because there was no music cues ruined and the production team seemed to have been able to pull off a good show. It's just a shame no one else did.
Damn.
Yeah, I hate to touch on what I said to begin with, but it really does feel like that period in between Survivor Series 97 and Mania 14 is almost like lost history. It feels like because In Your House, DX, and No Way Out of Texas, like nobody remembers them. Really, nobody unless you're a diehard fan. So yeah, it's lost.
I actually couldn't find this at first because I forgot like what to search. Like in the network, it was quite difficult. I was looking up In Your House and I went, hold on, that's not.
Right, shall we get into our closing segment? Hard to Resist exclusive. WWE legend Mick Foley says fans underestimate the financial reasons why The Undertaker and many others struggle to retire, by Alex McCarthy of Talksport.com. Now, I was really going to use this as a framing device so that we could talk about episode 4 of The Last Ride. What did we all make of that then?
Someone like Taker, I don't buy it, because you're interviewing him and he's in a big house, he lives on a big ranch. It's well noted that he's been investing in property and real estate as well. And he's been the top guy for 30 years now. And it's like, if you haven't got the money to retire when you're the Undertaker, you're fucked up badly.
Yeah, I wonder if... Sorry, I'll continue.
But obviously, to give that the flip around, obviously, we know the reality for a lot of pros. We reference Terry Funk. Again, he probably never had the money to retire. And even if you've watched a film like The Wrestler as well, you understand for a lot of old pros that is the reality as well. I mean, you will see a lot of big names doing indie shows in a fucking leisure centre with the lights bright on just to make them enough money to eat. So yeah, I understand there is a financial penalty and a financial risk and a reality that a lot can't retire. But The Undertaker, really?
See, when I first seen it, I was the same as you all. I was like, what? And I remember reading an article a while ago, to go off slightly off topic, that said Metallica can't stop touring because they can't afford to. And I'm like, what? And I read this article and I'm like, I don't think I'm really buying that. And get back to the Taker thing. When I read what Mick Foley actually said, and he went, I do all this work and I spend months and years writing a book and I'll get X amount of money for it. I can earn that going out to fight Carlito for 5 minutes. If you put that in context like that, Taker's got his profit. Taker's no longer draft. Taker's going to be okay when he retires. But he knows he can get an easy payday. Well, not an easy payday, but a quick payday.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of money to turn around, and it's that chasing the dragon thing, as Triple H said on the thing. It's not just about the money thing, which obviously it's a lot of money you'll be getting for these matches.
Yeah,
it must be hard to turn down. But you had the nail on the head there, Ollie. He's Randy the Ram for the wrestler. He just can't let it go. Yeah. But on a much grander stage, obviously, I'd hate to see Taker walking out in indie shows and stuff and just really trying to recapture that magic. Thankfully, he can still do it on a massive stage.
I'd like to see Taker fight the Ayatollah though.
I think this episode's almost a metaphor for Taker's entire Saudi run, and that it's long-winded, drawn out. Like this for me. If I was to review every show, this would be not a negative review, but the lesser one. It felt like a stopgap. Right.
Yeah.
We just need to fill up some time before we start talking about the conclusion. And to be fair, that's all the Saudi shows have been. They don't seem. He's not getting over the same gravitas for the Saudi shows, and I think this actually ties into what you guys are saying. He is not at all putting over these shows at all in these interviews like he is the Mania shows. And the Mania shows, the thing that made it exciting is each time he was questioning, will this be it? And he was working as hard as he could because it possibly could be. Whereas the Saudi shows, he was like, I might do a few of these. This is not bad, and it's obviously down to money. And I'm, maybe to a certain extent that is what Foley was talking about. I'm excited to watch the conclusion, but if I ever rewatch this, I am never going to watch this episode again because it was a big pile of nothing. Especially seeing as we could have got the explosive backstage footage with Goldberg, because apparently there was some stuff there. We didn't get that, and even when they covered. Yeah, and even when they covered the match, it felt like an afterthought. Really, I'm pretty sure it happened in the last 15 minutes of the episode.
It felt very similar to the previous episode, and I still enjoyed it. I still really liked it for what it was, but it didn't offer much more that we hadn't seen previously.
Yeah,
it was a place filler in many ways.
It felt like the entire Last Ride thing could have been one big 2-hour documentary.
Yeah.
Rather than having like these. I suppose it's the 5 hours now. Each episode's like an hour long. No, 50 minutes. But there was a few takeaways from this episode. It did feel like episode 2 all over again. Like we're just jogging in place till we get to the conclusion episode, which is up on the network now. But I'm really shocked at just how much footage actually exists outside of character. Like I don't know if you guys have been watching that The Last Dance on Netflix, the Michael Jordan documentary it's covering his last couple of years with the Chicago Bulls, and there's just so much footage. Like there's an entire years and years and years worth of stock that they've got, and it kind of there's footage from like Undertaker's outtakes and that where he broke character when he was doing the Paul Bearer stuff in the graveyard set and all that, and I'm quite surprised with just how much of this stuff they tape, like how much of it is locked in some vault somewhere that we're not going to see for years and years and years again. But and again, when it gets to the Goldberg match, it feels very, very conservatively strained back. Like it feels like they didn't want to go into the nitty gritty too much. I feel like the most kind of self-deprecating they've been is when they were talking about the Crown Jewel match. I don't know, is Goldberg even in this episode? Like, did they do an interview with him? I mean, I can imagine that would have been against Mark's wishes if these two had legitimate beef backstage, because I have to know, like, there has to be some grainy kind of handheld handicam footage of Mark calling Bill a motherfucker or something like that. Like, I'm kind of hoping that stuff's out there and we're going to see it.
But at the same time, Goldberg knocked himself out, so is it a case of there isn't anything from Gorilla because they got him on the table?
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe also, I mean, it's if there was an altercation backstage, Mark would be in the wrong because the guy was quite clearly concussed.
Yeah.
Really. So if you're wanting Mark to come off as the last Western hero that he is, I guess, then you're not going to show him screaming at a concussed man.
I think, to be fair, it's sort of amazing that Mark didn't get a concussion himself with being dropped on his head like that with a jackhammer. He
tucked his chin just at the right moment. You could see it.
He was like a couple of inches away from getting the Austin treatment. Now you could see it.
Yeah, I think that's scarier. Is the risk wasn't a concussion; it was far more grave than that. And it's the type of save that could only come from years of experience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think we've covered episode 4 pretty nicely then. Right, next week in your house, triple header.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to this one because
excellent. Right, guys, I'm just going to sign off. Right, take care, lads.
Take it easy, boys. Thank you.
Guys, take care.
Bye.